Before the show, I'd like to just say if you could like and share the podcast. I am a one-man show and I really do appreciate both the feedback and the support that you give. As a matter of fact, down in the comments, you can actually reach me directly if you ever want to share a message or get featured on the show. I got a text from Mount Pleasant, Michigan telling me good show last week. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into the episode.
Are you still talking about football?
Yeah, about NFC North.
Then let's talk football.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Headed North, an NFC North podcast, and I'm your host, D-Tron. Are you still fired up? I know it's like Friday or Saturday when you're listening to this, and maybe it's worn off just a bit for you, but if you're a Detroit fan or a fan of the grit or, a fan of never giving up when it's football time, then you had to love the way that the Lions and Texans game ended last Sunday. And again, I know it's been a while, you're probably over it already, but I'm not. Even if you're a Vikings fan, Packers fan, Bears fan, that had to be like a tip of the cap moment for the Lions and something that you had to be happy to see if you want to see the Lions ever reach the Super Bowl. Because that was overcoming some real odds. Some odds that they put themselves in. Looking at you, Jared Goff, but odds nonetheless. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but since the week is long gone, we won't spend a whole lot of time there. We will talk about this upcoming week's games, and I'm going to try to get you some spread in the field so we can make some money. But before we do any of that, let's kick it over to our sponsors so they can tell you about their stuff. This episode of Headed North Podcast is sponsored by OffRackShop.com. OffRackShop.com is an online thrift retailer. They specialize in men and women's clothing, shoes, accessories, and more. So if you haven't already, head to our description. You can find a discount code for your next purchase at OffRackShop.com. All right, we're going to get it kicked off here, but let me just say that something had to be in the water last week in the NFC North. Geez, these games they were wild. Let me tell you what happened. The Green Bay Packers were safe because they were off. Caleb was sacked 9 times by a 2-7, a now 3-7 New England Patriots. They threw 0 touchdowns and finished with 1 field goal. Sam Darnold also threw 0 touchdown passes. He threw 3 interceptions, and their only points came on field goals. And speaking of interceptions, hello again, Jared Goff. 5 picks. And he joins a club that not a whole lot of people are in, but you probably aren't that tore up if you're there. It's people who've thrown 5 interceptions and still won the game. People like Tony Romo and I think Matt Ryan. That's not a great stat, but you know what? A win is all that matters, and that's what they got. So let me run down 3 things from last week and tell you about 3 things for this upcoming week. Let's start with the Minnesota Vikings. They played the Jaguars, and the Vikings were a -4 against the Jags. They end up pulling it out. They won 12-7. First things first, 143 total yards for the Jaguars. Didn't expect much for Mac Jones coming in and starting instead of Trevor Lawrence. But Minnesota's defense just shines. They're the key. They're clearly the key here. And that's, I think, the big thing. That 143 total yards left a Jag team that has weapons, really without a chance to win that. I won't say a chance. They did have a chance to win that game. But it wasn't because their offense was lighting it up. Clearly, 143 total yards. Second, Sam Darnold threw 3 picks. And they were not difficult looks. He's thrown 5 in his last 6 games and multiple picks in the red zone in the last 2 games. That's not a good trend. Sam Darnold's starting to regress just a little bit, or at least over the last 2 games. They still got to win this week, but I would watch out if I were Minnesota Vikings, potentially simplify some of what Sam is having to do out there, because it seems like he's getting, especially in the red zone, it looks like he's not seeing the whole field, because the picks that he's thrown there should have been easy non-interceptions. And the third thing about last week, which is going to take us right into this week, is TJ Hockinson is looking primed to get back to top 5 tight end status. And I think what that does is steal some spotlight away from Justin Jefferson, which is probably going to just help his production. And that's what I'm going to look at going into this week's game, where the Vikings are at the Tennessee Titans. The Vikings are a -6. Well, that's a lot of points for a team that was not able to put up very many on a Jaguars team that had Mac Jones leading the show. But I think with TJ Hockinson firmly being Sam Darnold's go-to guy, it's going to make those safeties cheat up, and you're going to see Justin Jefferson have a huge game this week. That's my first thing, is that TJ Hawkinson's creating space for Justin Jefferson to do what he does best. Secondly, I think the defense is going to do exactly what it did against the Jaguars. The Tennessee Titans have had a rough year so far. Rough year going against the NFC North. Also had a bunch of points put up on them by the Lions. The defense for the Minnesota Vikings are going to smother this Titans offense. I just think it's going to be a tough watch. I think Minnesota gets this game pretty easily. And the third thing on this list is offense will simplify plays, especially in the red zone, for Sam Darnold. Expect to see more Aaron Jones in the red zone when it is time to try to score. They're going to stop putting the ball in Sam's hands until he gets that confidence back. I think you're going to see at least one score, but possibly two rushing scores from Aaron Jones this week against the Tennessee Titans. All right, I'm going to roll right on into my Detroit Lions. And I know at the top of the show, I really gave them some applause, but that was a tough game to watch for the first half. It was whoa. So first thing on this top 3 things from last week is 5 picks. And please don't panic is the second half of that. He threw 5 picks, but in his last 5 games, he's gone without a pick. And he threw more in this one game than he's thrown through 8 games. So this is absolutely unlike the Jared Goff that you have this year, and don't expect to see that kind of performance again. That's first. Secondly, man, I'm really happy that Jake Bates gave up the brick work and got back to the kick work. It was tight, real tight on both of those kicks. But you know what? He pulled it out. And I gotta stand back and applaud. I'd applaud right now if it wouldn't mess up the audio on this show. Thank you, Jake Bates, for closing out what should have been a losing effort by the Lions and really turning the fortunes of this group, showing them that they can fall behind, come back and win. They can beat teams by big margins. They can score on you in all facets. The defense feels rewarded that they were able to pull it out after giving such a great effort in the second half. This was capped off by Jake Bates, but really a full team effort believing in their ability to come back. And third, the defense. The defense made a way. They kept Joe Mixon to 46 yards on the ground, 2 picks off C.J. Stroud, 4 sacks of C.J. Stroud, keeping up that pattern of him getting sacked. The Detroit Lions defense stepped up in a huge way. If they failed, that game would have quickly got out of hand. Well, it was already out of hand, but it would have continued down that path. There was those big interceptions by Carlton Davis, man. Like, that was huge interceptions, especially the one where Tank Dell was in the end zone wide open. You know, if CJ puts that on him, that game could potentially not have gone the way that it did. So, huge shout out to the Lions defense. Now, this week, the Lions have the Jags, the same Jags that just went up against the Minnesota Vikings and put up 143 total yards with Mac Jones at QB. Now, I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is back this week. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But the Lions are -13 as of today. And that's a lot of points for any NFL team. I also think it's a lot of points because the Lions are likely coming out to try to put together an efficient game. So first things first for the Lions. You would think my confidence would be shaken in them, but after Sunday night, you're wrong. I feel even better about them. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, expect a bounce back performance from Jared Goff, but not like you might expect. He's not going to be throwing the ball all over the place, although he is going to put together his normal array of play action passes. I think they're going to search for efficiencies here, definitely be able to lean on the run game a little bit more and help Jared Goff get over this shaky 5 interception game and get back to what they've been doing. And third, I think the defense carries again. The Lions defense are going up against a Jags team that has struggled all year. And I don't expect them to come out and somehow find a way to put it together against the Lions in Detroit. That's a really tough task. So I'm expecting the Lions to still win big here. I just don't think that it's going to be an air-out game like you've seen with some of their other performances, like against the Cowboys or the Titans. All right, rolling right on into the Chicago Bears. And boy, there's disappointment all over the Windy City. The Chicago Bears took on the Patriots last week. They were a -6. I told you, don't do that. Take the Patriots. And they lost 19-3. So first up for the Chicago Bears, I alluded to it in the open. Caleb was sacked 9 times. And he only completed 16 passes on 30 attempts. Caleb is not getting protection. But you could guess that by the number of times that he's being sacked. It's not all him, because there's certainly some of him in there. But I think the second point, Caleb has been failed by the coaches. They needed more designed quick passes to get him in a rhythm. Get some of the pressure off of him, take some of the pressure off, completing these long, drawn-out plays. And that also means he's going to have to get the ball to weapons who are good in space and good quickly. That's DJ Moore, things like bubble screens, and Cole Kmet, who is a major target that they are not using, right? Like, to get Rome on a post, it's going to take a little while, and you need blocking to be able to do that. It's not there right now, so you've got to hit these weapons that can get the ball and make plays quickly. Again, I think it's DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. So, there's one, Caleb sacked a lot. 2, Caleb has been failed by his coaches because they're not even moving in the pocket, or they're not setting him up with the kind of plays that are going to get the ball out quickly. I will say this, they did get rid of their OC, which I'll talk about here, which might benefit them in their Packers game. But the third and final thing about last week's game, Caleb has been outplayed by Drake May and Jaden Daniels in their matchups. I know their situations are completely different. Organizations are different. The coaching is different. But I just want to note, I mentioned he was not the best quarterback coming out of this draft. And somehow Chicago got their prodigal son and have not done anything with him yet. Ooh, I don't want to be Eberflus right now. The Packers are getting ready to take on the Bears. And Eberflus has never beat the Packers. So, I want you to first be aware, though, that there could be a situational boost for the Bears based on firing Shane Waldron and promoting Thomas Brown. It's situational because they could completely overhaul the offense in this week before they take on the Packers. I doubt it, but they could, and that could give them just what they need to be able to get over the hump against the Packers. But the second thing about this Packers and Bears matchup is the Packers have won 10 straight against the Chicago Bears, and they've won 9 of the last 15 games after the bye week, which they're coming off of a bye week. So they've got being rested to their favor. They've got history on their favor. LaFleur is 4-0 against Eberflus, and he is 10-0 against the Bears. LaFleur has not lost against the Bears. Jeez, imagine having that in your own division. Like, every time you get ready to go up against that guy, you're like, yeah, I've never lost against him. Third thing, and it's important, there's 2 things that Chicago can hope to do so that they do not absolutely get crushed. The first is protection. Shift it, move it, add more of it, max protect, it doesn't matter. You gotta protect Caleb, making his play selection smaller, but protect him. And the second thing that they got to do is cross their fingers and hope that the Green Bay secondary does not play well. If the Green Bay secondary fails them, I think the Chicago Bears have a chance to not get blown out. and an outside chance of winning. But those two things both have to happen. They have to have protection for Caleb, and the Green Bay secondary has to absolutely fail for them to not get this game won. So that is the rundown for Packers, Lions, Bears, Vikings. And, week 10, we had some spread in the field. Some of it was good, some of it not so good. So if you listened to my picks last week, you would have heard me say take the Minnesota Vikings -4. You would have been correct on that one. They did win by 5. I told you with Chicago and the Patriots to take the Patriots +6. Again, you would have been correct. Not only did they get the +6, they won big. And then I told you a no-brainer was the Lions -3.5 against the Texans. Boy, they made me sweat, and they got the win, but they did not get the win by 4. They got the win by 3. So the game I felt most confident about betrayed me. But that's okay. We're back to the drawing board with all 4 teams playing this week with a divisional matchup there. So we've got the Vikings at the Tennessee Titans, and the Vikings were a -6. Take the Vikings. I think there's a good bounce back going on here. Sam Darnold's going to lean on Aaron Jones some more with the running game. He's going to be able to hit some big plays with Justin Jefferson because they got Hockinson back. I think the Vikings win by 10. So give me the Vikings -6 for the Jags in Detroit. Detroit -13. I think this is a game where they can win. Oh, they probably win by 2 touchdowns. So I'm going to tell you to take the Lions -13. I would feel so much better if I could get this line at -10. But I would take -13. I wouldn't take 14 or 14.5 because I think they win by 2 touchdowns here. And then the Packers at the Bears. It's so hard for me to believe that the Bears are going to beat the Packers after a bye week with all that they got going on. But again, there is the potential for a situational boost. I just don't think it's going to be enough. Give me the Packers -6. I think they win by at least a touchdown. I guess it could be a 2 field goal kind of game, but I just don't think that the Packers are ready to lose yet to the Bears. It's not their time yet. All right, that is the show for the day. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave me a comment. There's a spot down there in the description you might be able to click that says send us a text. I got a text from Mount Pleasant, Michigan telling me good show last week. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Keep those comments coming. And as always, if you come back next week, which I hope you do, make sure you got your bags packed because we are headed north. I'm D-Tron. Peace.
Are you still talking about football?
Yeah, but NFC North.
Then let's talk football.